goedemiddag en goede avond. Wherever you may be tuning in from, a warm welcome to Central Year Connections, where we explore inspiring stories, culture, and everyday life across this beautiful part of the world. I'm Eva Marie, joining you live from Hamburg, Germany, and it's currently exactly 7:01 p.m. Central European Time. No, not summertime no more. Winter time starting off today. And also 2 a.m. in the Philippines. To all our early bird and night owl listeners, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Let's take a quick look at our Central Europe weather snapshot for the week. Here in Hamburg, it's 10 degrees Celsius with light rain and a storm warning tonight. The rest of the week stays cool and breezy around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius with some sunshine toward the weekend. Over in Utrecht, it's mostly cloudy at 9 degrees Celsius, and the week ahead brings mild autumn weather. A mix of clouds, light rain, and highs up to 16 degrees Celsius later on. And in Zurich, it's also around 10 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy with a moderate wind advisory. The coming days will be mostly dry with a few sunny breaks and light showers by the weekend. Definitely an autumn evening across Central Europe. And what better way to spend it than with some good conversation and company right here on INC Radio. So don't forget you can watch us live on YouTube. Just search INC Radio DZM 954 and click live now to join the conversation. And of course, feel free to send in your greetings and shout outs in the comments. I'll be reading some of them later. All right, let's get started with something fun to warm us up before we dive into tonight's topic, Utrecht, Canals, and City of Students. My German part came out of me. And of course, I'm not alone tonight. I'm joined by a lovely guest who's also from the northern part of Germany, my best friend, Vanessa. Guten Abend.
Guten Abend, Po. Hello, Po, everyone. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm Vanessa, also from the local of Hamburg, and I'm happy that I get to be here and support Central Europe connections as well. Thank you.
Icebreaker for tonight. We're playing for a quick round of true or false, Utrecht, Canals, and the city of students. So Kuya Tech will be sharing some statements about Utrecht, and we will guess if they're true or false. And of course, to everyone tuned in live on YouTube, join the fun by typing your guesses in the chat. And we'll be reading some of your comments later on. So let's start, Kuya Tech. May we kindly see the first question of our true or false icebreaker. And the first question will be, Utrecht is known for inventing Gouda cheese. Is that true or is that false? Vanessa, you have the honor to start first.
Oh man, that's a bit pressure here. Um, Geez, Netherlands. It's a tight connection, but I'd say it's false.
Pause. Is it maybe because of the Gouda that's standing there? Because is there a city perhaps? Well, let's ask Kuyatek. Kuyatek, what's the correct answer? And the correct answer is false. Yeah. Because the Gouda cheese is from the nearby town of Gouda, not Utrecht. Okay, good to know. Good to know. That was a warm up question for us tonight, Vanessa. So let's see what the second question will be. And the second question will be, Utrecht has one of the largest student populations in the Netherlands. Hmm. I'm still a student of myself, and I feel like Hamburg already has a big population of, or a larger students population. But I'm not sure about the Netherlands. I cannot really categorize them, or I don't know. I don't have much information about it, but maybe you know it, Vanessa.
Well, I would say since we based on our title of our tonight's episode, I would say it's true. Let's see. That's
Okay.
our guesses
Let's
are
see.
correct.
Let's see what the live chat has to say. Kyrene Juliet Cavello says it's true. Hashtag Berlin. Also, Camario Cavello and Kazakaria also says it's true. Okay, let's see. Queer Tech, what's the correct answer? And it is true, okay, because over 70,000 students study there. It's a real university town. Okay, now I'm really interested in how many students Hamburg has, or even Heidelberg, which I also heard is a university town, but maybe we'll find that out in the future broadcast. So let's continue on with the third question. The third question is Utrecht's canals freeze every winter and people skate on them. Is it true or is it false? Hmm, hmm. Vanessa, please help me out here.
I'm torn because it could be very realistic, but at the same time, it feels too good to be true. So I don't know. I'll just go with false. Do you want to go with
Oh,
true? So we both have options here.
okay, let's have that one kind of way. Let's say I'm gonna say true and Vanessa will be false, but whoever got it right, we both have it right. Okay, let's see. Kuyatek, what's the correct answer? And it's false. Okay. That's rare now. Okay, so it has been freezing up every winter, but the winters aren't cold enough anymore. Well, that kind of reminds me of Hamburg. You know, the Alster Lake? It used to be like to freeze as well every winter, but now it has not anymore, which is pretty sad because it used to be when we were still very small.
True, true. But the thing is, based on the answer to that question, we are both correct because, as mentioned, they were frozen before. So I think it's just fair that we both went with both options.
That's really true. And then I also see that in the live chat, they also agree with the answer of false. Like, for example, Kyrene again, Kazakaraya, and Kaalaya or Alia is also saying it's false. Okay, let's move on to the next question, number four. Tech, what is it? Okay, there it is. Utrecht has driverless electric trams that serve university campuses. All right. That's an interesting question. Yeah, question or statement in this case. Mm, kind of sounds too good to be true, but I can also imagine since it's a university town, it could be possible. What do you think, Vanessa?
If I think, yes, I agree that it's too good to be true because we don't have that here in Hamburg and in other places. We've both been yet, but I think we should just go with true because let's see. And even if it's not true, I think it's something that one of us or someone should definitely invent, especially across university campuses. So we'll just go with true, I guess.
Yes, so we go with true and we're agreeing with the live chat. So let's see. Kritek, what's the right answer? And it is false. Oh, it is false, Vanessa. So it does have modern trams, but they still have a driver. So for now, so maybe since it's also a university town, the students will find a way to actually have driverless electric trams. Yeah. Okay. Last question. Question number five. It is about the Library of Utrecht University, which used to be a hospital. Wait, doesn't our old school was also wait a second. It kind of get it kind of reminds me of our old school, Vanessa, our high school. It also used to be a hospital, right?
Yes. I thought that's exactly the same thing when I read that statement. Yes, our old high school used to be, or was built to be an hospital, actually. I think it wasn't one, but it was supposed to be one. So now, based on that, I think true.
Yeah, I think so too. So it's not really impossible for a library or a part of a university to be used as an hospital. So let's see, wait, let's see what Utrecht has as an true. So it is located in a former great mix of old and new architecture. All right, that's really interesting. And I see also that Camario says it's false, but also Kyrene says it's true. And then we have false and true. So also the live chat wasn't that sure yet because it seemed to be possible, but also wasn't possible at all. All right, and that actually would be with our icebreaker for tonight because we do have an interesting topic to talk about. Since now, normally, this is the part where we travel through our castles to city segment, but tonight we'll take you there through words instead. So let's imagine all together walking along the calm canals with cozy cafes at a water level and students biking past historic townhouses. And that's Utrecht, a city that feels both old and young at the same time. So, Vanessa, when you imagine Utrecht, what's the first picture that comes to your mind?
Well, since Utrecht is a city in the Netherlands, the first thing that actually comes to my mind is everything that could be considered or could be connected to the Netherlands in general. So it's bikes, canals with the river in the middle of the city. Then you have the walk path or bike lanes on both side of the river. Um, then you have those tiny bridges where you can stand or take pictures from, looking down to the river or the canals. So I think that's not only Utrecht specifically, but the Netherlands in general. But I think that's what I would think of Utrecht since I've never been there. Have you ever been there, Eva?
No, I've never been to Utrecht before. I've been to Amsterdam. I've never really been to how do you say it? I've never been really to Utrecht before, and I love that image that you just mentioned, or the their heart. So yeah, I think that's what it makes it special. It's not too busy like Amsterdam, but it still has that youthful energy. And Utrecht is one of the oldest cities in the Netherlands. So for example, the Oude Gracht Canal has restaurants and cellars below street level, and it's pretty unique in Europe. So it's both a cultural and university city.
Okay, Paul, I think we're having a few technical difficulties. So as we mentioned before, we are talking about our current topic, the city of Utrecht, which is a city in the Netherlands and is famous for its canals, but not only for its canals, but also for being a city for students. So we were talking at first about stereotypes or first impressions about the city of Utrecht. As I mentioned, the first things that come to my mind when it comes to the city of Utrecht, it's a general picture of the Netherlands. So we have bicycles, canals, maybe even cozy cafes. But since it's also written in the title of our tonight's episode, it's also the students that we have. So I think Eva is back. Eva, please share with us now, what are your first impressions when you think of the city of Utrecht?
So I'm so sorry. I guess we got too much information, and my internet wasn't able to comprehend it all. But actually, what I've heard about Utrecht is that it's one of the oldest cities in the Netherlands, and I assume Vanessa was already talking about the lot of bicycles that they are using there, and I feel like it is very special, especially um, when it comes to their canals. Because I've heard there's the one canal which is called Oude Gracht canal. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce it. I'm not a fully Dutch person. But yeah, it has restaurants and cellars below street level, and that's pretty unique in Europe. So it's both a cultural and university city. And speaking of cultural and university city, most especially focusing on the university part, Utrecht is known as one of the most student-friendly cities in the Netherlands, with Utrecht University being one of the oldest in Europe. So that makes me wonder, Vanessa, what do you think student life there might be like?
That's a good question because, I mean, you're still studying. I was a student up until last year, and we both studied in different places. You're studying in Hamburg. Studied in the city of Berlin. So I think student life is comparable to both countries, the Netherlands and Germany. Um, but I think it's more diverse, to be honest, when it comes to the language. And for example, since in Germany, of course, people would be focused more on German studies. There are also classes that are in English, anyways. But since the Netherlands are also sort of considered as a melting pot, because people do come from different countries to study abroad, why not offer courses in English? So I think that's one of the things that speak for diversity. But I think it's also like the not only the diversity, but also the vibe with the canals, the water, that you have the bike lanes, that you maybe even be able to take the bike to go to university. So I think, yeah, that's how student life is, that you take your course, you attend your classes. After you're done, maybe you meet up with classmates or friends in a cafe, or maybe even in the library to form a study group to study together or so. And then afterwards, maybe walk by the canals, or that's your way home. Either way, but that's how I think student life would be in Utrecht. What do you think, Eva? How's student life in Utrecht according to your impression?
Well, I feel like you really hit a good point with the cafes, because it's really unique on how the cafes are on like water level or even underwater level. Because in Hamburg you cannot do that, especially in the storm. What do you call it? Storm season that we currently have, and it's like not possible for Hamburg to have like cafes under the water level. And I feel like it will be a pretty different atmosphere in comparison if you would just go to a simple cafe, and then in comparison to somewhere near the water, but it's also not too close to the water, if you know what I mean. Because I feel like hearing water and the sound of water generally is making it pretty calm for students to study, to reflect on what they're actually studying at. And I think that would make something really exciting about the student life there. So you've studied. or you're done with your studies, Vanessa. So, where have you been studying? What perhaps did you study? And what do you think would be the bigger difference between Utrecht and the city you studied in?
Well, so as mentioned, I studied in Berlin. I started studying there 4 years ago, so in 2021, and I graduated last year. In a year already, time flies. And I actually studied journalism and corporate communication. So I think, I mean, we both talked about Utrecht a little bit before our broadcast already, just to get an idea, different impression, perspectives about the city. So since Utrecht, like the University of Utrecht, is more focused on arts, science, and sustainability, if I'm not mistaken. So I think I would focus more, since I'm not that arts interested and not that good in arts, I'd say. I would probably focus on the science part and be, if I'm a student in Utrecht, let's just go that if we studied in Utrecht, I would probably be studying something like communication science. So it would still be somehow related to what I just studied, because I find it just very interesting. But with the student life, if we, let's say we've both studied together in Utrecht, I think we would, of course, be attending classes, maybe even the same classes, who knows? And then afterwards, probably form a study group together, either learn together or sit down together in a cafe, or the library, wherever the the surroundings are the best to learn. Maybe talk about a few things apart from studying, just to get some pause from all the studying as well, and then walk by the canals, eat a stroopwafel maybe to like ease the pain, because I mean, food is life. We both love food as well. Um, so I think that would be something. And if I compare it to like what I think of Utrecht, like what I imagine or what I think student life in Utrecht is like, it's a bit different to Berlin. So in Berlin, of course, you also have those tiny cafes where you can sit down, or the library, where I studied, where you can, as I said, sit down and study. But the environment is just, for me, it was a bit too crowded in some public places. Therefore, I actually preferred the library, because more people go out and study in a cafe. So I preferred the library, or even study at home or in a park if the weather was good, so that you do get a different perspective and you can really take your mind off something actually. And yeah, and after class, most of my study friends, we would, yeah, sit down and study together, and afterwards we would all go home or eat something, but that was actually it. So there was never that real close connection that I feel like you have that more, because I think Utrecht is not that much of a big city compared to Berlin. So you have this way, like for example, that you'd be able to ride the bike on your way home, or public transport, which would maybe not as crowded as in some other places it could be. So yeah, I think, for me that's something. But I mean, if you're still, as you mentioned, you're still studying, and I wouldn't say Hamburg is a small city, maybe not as big as Berlin, but how do you think is student life in Utrecht compared to your current student life here in Hamburg?
So basically, I started with actually studying fully online. So that will be something that I cannot really compare to Utrecht and Hamburg too. But now that I'm actually studying face to face, I feel like in Hamburg, it could be the point that there are a lot of how do you call it, events which are also made for students, or even led by students, and there are a lot of cafes as well. But perhaps in Utrecht it could be that the students would feel more of the streets, because Hamburg is pretty big. Hamburg has a certain spot around the university, where the campus is, and that's where mostly the students are at. There's even streets which are probably mostly for the students, like cafes, like restaurants. I think we know which streets we're talking about. But I feel like in Utrecht, it's like a mixture of everyone. It's like not only just one spot in Utrecht where a lot of students are, but instead everywhere. And I feel like that it is bringing the more energy and creativity with it. And as you've mentioned, there are a lot of international students as well who are mostly studying art, science, and sustainability, which makes sense, especially when you're focusing on sustainability, because actually, Utrecht is one of the greenest and most bike friendly cities in the world. Yes, of course, there are a lot of bike friendly cities in the world, including different kind of cities in the Netherlands itself. But I guess sometimes those kind of cities are overlooked by students, and even though there's an international point already into it, but preferably when students are coming into Europe or seeing the opportunity to study in Europe, they mostly look at bigger cities like Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Hamburg, Berlin, Heidelberg. Of course, there's nothing wrong about it, but sometimes maybe the opportunity would have been better or more fascinating if you've been into a city which is not fully crowded, as you've also mentioned. And I think that's the main difference I am seeing right now between Hamburg and Utrecht, speaking of own experiences. But I feel like also studying in a historic city like Utrecht would keep you get inspired, especially when you're an art student. I wouldn't say that there are no cities in Germany which are not inspiring or cultivating the creativity. But since I've never been to Utrecht, I cannot really compare it. And I think it's good not to compare it because every city has its unique taste in whatever preferences you might have. And just all in all, I feel like with the canals everywhere, it must feel like a campus that never sleeps. So basically, that that's what I'm thinking about Utrecht right now and the research that we've been doing for this broadcast tonight. So of course, what really makes Utrecht stand out are its canals. They're not just for sightseeing, they're actually part of daily life of the ones who are living there. So, have you ever visited a canal city before, Vanessa?
I mean, if you wanna count Hamburg, although Hamburg is not really considered as a city of canals, um, I mean, I have been to Amsterdam a couple years ago, so I think Amsterdam is also well known for the canals there, and also Rotterdam. But apart from that, I can't really think of any other places within Europe that are like considered as canals cities. If I have you ever been to canal cities?
Well, just Amsterdam as well, and Hamburg is also considered one of a canal city. I remember the friendly competition between the cities, Venice, Hamburg, Amsterdam, who has the most bridges, and Hamburg wins. But of course, it really just is about the different infrastructure that the city offers. And I feel like also what makes the canals in Utrecht special, which I haven't seen yet, is that the canals are two level, as I mentioned already in the beginning, because the lower level or the so-called wharfs was used for trade, but now it's turned into cafes and galleries. And I've never seen that before. I'm actually really interested to go into Utrecht right now. But maybe in the live chat they have some information about Utrecht. So if you've been to Utrecht before or you did your research about Utrecht before, please let us know in the comment section so we can actually read them out as well. And maybe we can talk about it. Or if you have any questions or if anything was unclear, just let us know. Because I've also saw a comment from Sister Irene Cavello that sustainability is also a bigger part for the university in Heidelberg. And that's interesting. I didn't know that. that actually sustainability is also a bigger course in Heidelberg. So you were always learning something new, and that's really amazing, especially since we are not only the two of us having a conversation tonight, but of course the live chat is also really engaging. And I also saw already a comment from Camario Cavello that he wishes to visit Utrecht, hashtag Berlin, and that's really cool. Let's go all to Utrecht. Well, yeah, but continuing on, since of course you've perhaps visited a canal city before, Amsterdam, Hamburg, always, of course. What do you think it will be like to live right by the canals, Vanessa?
I mean, I think it would be nice to have this different type of view because how many times do you actually get to say, hey, I have the view and like I can directly look at the canals? For some people, it might not be the prettiest view, I think. A park or forest or nature would be prettier as well. However, a canal is for me considered nature as well because it's water. It's also historical because it's one of the characteristics of city like Utrecht that you have canals there. So living next to it would be nice. For example, let's say you're on your way home and you get to walk by the canals, especially if it's evening or a bit dark already, then you have those lights, lanterns that maybe even reflect in the water. So I think that's pretty nice. But also when you're sitting on your balcony or just looking out the window and you get to see, hey, those canals, they're beautiful. And as mentioned, that everybody might be able to have that view. But at the same time, I'm a bit thinking of if it's not too loud, then it would be perfect or ideal for me. If it's too loud, then I hope that it's not too loud, as mentioned, so it's not disturbing. But if it's just like the splashing of the water or something like that, some people find that actually calming as well. So um, I think I must try it first, and then I'll be able to tell if I like it or not. How about you, Eva? Would you actually live near, right, directly by the canals?
I think it will be a really interesting experience as well, since I can say for myself, I'm living in a town or a small town, actually, or even a village. I'm not sure. Maybe it already grew out of the village status. But I think it will be a really interesting experience, especially because I love to hear the water. Maybe it will be a bit how do you call it, not worrisome, but if, for example, out of experience here in Hamburg, there are floods in the harbor area near the canals. So I think that will be something that I would need to consider about if I would be ready to have those kind of floodings. But of course, there's always a way on how to actually stop those floodings in that case. So maybe you can try it out. Maybe a semester outside of Germany will be an opportunity for that. You know now, Utrecht is a university city, and perhaps it will be an opportunity to also see and look for the opportunity to study there. And yeah, I think that's actually a good summary of all the points that we've talked about. And of course, as heritage meets modern life, and of course, there are a lot of students, there are a lot of locals who've lived there since their whole life. I'm actually really fascinated about Utrecht on how it keeps its history alive, but it still feels modern and young when you look at the pictures or hearing from other experiences. So, how do you think, Vanessa, a city's history influences the people living there today?
I think it's important that you have both sides. I mean, there are many places in the world that actually have, even I think it's named Old Town or New Town or Old City or New City. And I think it's nice that they keep it like that because, mm, I mean, you always have this historic part. The historic part doesn't always have to be a building, it can also be a place because something historically important happened. That's why it's preserved or kept. or even in the street name, for example, or the place is called like that. Um, so there's a reason why it's being preserved or kept, which I find nice because people are different. People's interests are also different. So there are some people who would actually like to just see the old town or the historical places, and there are some, maybe even younger ones, mostly, um, that are not that much into history. They they're not really interested in that, but they're more focused on those modern things, modern buildings, modern places. But I find it nice if a city has both of those things, but because then you sometimes also understand why something new is built based on historical events, for example, or something historical that has happened, or it originated from that and just had to be modernized. Those are things that I think not only for people living there is interesting, because if you're living in a city and there's a historical part, you will always be connected to it. You will always be reminded by it, even just walking by that place, or if it's a bus stop that is even named after a famous event or historical site. I think that's already more than enough to appreciate it, at least. You don't always have to be, of course, interested in history, but everywhere you look, buildings have been there before we even um, moved to the city or lived in that city. So everything there is history, and it makes it each and every city unique because it's part of its story. But how about you, Eva? What do you think is like for you? Would you also prefer an old city, a new city, or do you also like the mix of both types?
Oh, I love the mix of both because, first of all, the history is kind of the base of what's new. Because, of course, if that hasn't been made or hasn't been built before, it's the moment where you also feel like, oh, wait, how would they know how to build that next? So I love the combination of old architecture and the modern architecture, or even the traditions that have been developed over the time. Because I feel like it's part of the history of the people and the locals, and that's where we can get to know them. And I wouldn't say that the buildings, the sites that we see is what keeps the city alive, but instead the people and the experiences that we are creating there, especially when it comes to a city we've never been to before. Maybe, of course, you research about cities where you want to go, what kind of tourist sightseeing you want to do, maybe even already searching for local hidden gems, but you only know the real hidden gems when you're actually in conversation with the locals themselves, because they know their city, they know what they can suggest to you. Maybe the famous restaurant that you saw on social media is not that good, but instead a really small traditional family business will be even better to actually experience the real, let's say, the real local food, and not only a food that maybe has been trending. Doesn't mean that trending things, especially regarding food, is bad. But of course, let's always have an open mind and eyes for those who we can also support, the locals, because that's where also the city is basing off. Cities are made by the locals, beziehungsweise, oh, suddenly my German came out. But instead, they're also keeping it alive. So even though we've never been to Utrecht, Vanessa, I think we've kind of seen or have a feeling on how cities can reflect both the history and the future to the people who live and study there. So that what makes Utrecht pretty special. It's not only a cultural city, but also a student city, which combines, don't understand me wrong, I wouldn't say old people, but like old with new. That's not what I mean, but old new people, or you know what I mean. So for me, Utrecht reminds me of how calm places can be full of purple, can still be full of purpose and creativity. So wherever we are in Central Europe, whether in Hamburg, Utrecht, or in Zurich, we can all find beauty in learning, connecting, and growing together. And I think our time for our conversation was sadly up, Vanessa. But since autumn is painting the streets with beautiful shades everywhere, tonight's topic for German is Fun is all about colors, or in German, Farben. So it's time for our fun language segment, German is Fun.
German is fun. Deutsch macht Spaß. Hallo everyone. Hallo zusammen. Welcome to German is fun. Willkommen zu Deutsch macht Spaß. Ich bin Schwester Malou Francisco, inviting you once again to have fun with us learning German, basic German. Today, you'll learn words and phrases that have to do with colors. Color in German, die Farbe. Die Farbe. Colors, Farben. Farben. German is fun. Deutsch macht Spaß. As usual, I'll say the words first in English, then the German equivalents. All you have to do is listen, repeat, and of course, have fun. Here now are the colors. Red, auf Deutsch, rot. Rot. Orange, in German, orange. Orange. Yellow, gelb. Gelb. The word is spelled G-E-L-B. The ending B in a word in German is pronounced as P. So you say gelb. Brown in German, it's brown, spelled B-R-A-U-N. So easy to remember. Just like in English, the same pronunciation. It's brown. Green, grün. Grün. The U is a U umlaut. And you say it long. So, grün. Blue, blau. Blau. What about black and white? Black is schwarz. Schwarz. The spelling? S-C-H-W-A-R-Z. Remember, SCH, this combination of consonants, is pronounced as sh, just like the initial sound of the English word shower. And what about W in German? You pronounce it as V. Black is schwarz. Schwarz. White, weiß. Weiß. That's the German word for white. German is fun. Deutsch macht Spaß. And now, let's practice. First, I'll say the short dialogues in English, then the German equivalents. Let's begin. What is that? That's a ball. The ball is brown. Was ist das? Das ist ein Ball. Der Ball is brown. What is that? That's a car. The car is blue. Was ist das? Das ist ein Auto. Das Auto is blau. What's that? That's a cup. The cup is red. Was ist das? Das ist eine Tasse. Die Tasse ist rot. German is fun. Deutsch macht Spaß. This has been today's episode of German is fun. Deutsch macht Spaß. I'm Sis guys, alles Gute. I wish you all a pleasant week ahead of us. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss. Stay safe. Bleib gesund. German is fun. Deutsch macht Spaß.
Good evening and welcome back to Central Europe Connections. And a huge thank you and shout out to Miss Malou Francisco for always bringing out a new episode of German is Fun every Sunday. So remember, the next time you see the beautiful colors of Central Europe, you can name them in German too. So if you see the colorful leaves of the trees, which are not leaving yet, but instead painting this beautiful alleys, uh, always remember and reflect on what colors they are in German. And now we would like to recognize our most active clusters, Kuyatech. Who are the top three clusters?
Third place, Hamburg cluster. Second place, Heidelberg cluster. First place, Berlin cluster.
Congratulations to all the top three clusters of last week's episode or broadcast as well. And we're looking forward to the ones who will be in the next top three clusters in the next episode. So stay connected and also maybe share your last few final shout outs before we wrap up in tonight's episode for today. So I'm going to read out some comments, and we have congratulations to all our winners from Carrecho Inocencio, hashtag Heidelberg Cluster. Then we also have Nice Learning Deutsch, hashtag Berlin, Schrägstrich, dash Wuppertal from Kaelma Reisig. And we also have here from hashtag Italy South, Ka Kim Sarmiento. And I also saw a lot of brethren from Hawaii, which is really nice. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, we also like to shout out the top three live chatters of last week's episodes, which are on third place, Kalinda Cavello, and second place, Kajon Dakila, and on first place, our number one fan who guessed it right, Camario Cavello. Good evening to everyone if you're still watching as well today, and shout out to you. So, especially now we're slowly coming to an end, dearest Vanessa, do you perhaps have any shout outs to give out?
Yes, thank you. First of all, my shout outs go to you and our INCRadio team. Thank you so much for having me here tonight and talk about a very interesting topic, Utrecht. I will definitely be adding Utrecht to my travel list now that we've discussed it. Apart from that, my shout outs go, of course, to the local congregation of Hamburg. Happy viewing, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Not to mention the Berlin cluster. They have been my second family the time I was studying there. Thank you so much, Bo. I miss you all. I hope I'll see you all soon again, Bo. And yes, then as well, I would like to shout out my family, the Miller family, my mom, and yeah, you, Sister Eva, as well. Thank you so much for having me. What time for your shout outs now?
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I would also like to shout out the Hamburger family and especially including the clusters Bremen, Leg, Rendsburg, and Lübeck, and also to Berlin, of course, who we used to be all a cluster, but even though we're not yet anymore, but we're still a whole cluster looking forward to our next Unity games, hopefully soon. But I actually just wanted to give a shout out also to Christian Rackpan from hashtag Bonn, who is always pointing out the German words I'm using with Schrägstrich and beziehungsweise. Thank you so much for pointing it out. But now that we're coming to an end, And of course, we're very excited about next week's broadcast and what kind of topic there will be. I have prepared a riddle. So I guess Vanessa will already guess it right because she's been in Berlin for a longer time. And we Germans do know the. Oh, did I already said the word? Do know what maybe might be the answer. And here is the riddle. So comment down below what you think might be the next week's topic, and we'll figure it out next week if you are right. Okay, here it comes. Fries as my side, paper tray as my throne. In Germany's capital, I'm best known. What street food am I? All right, so that's the riddle for tonight. And that also will be it for our Central Europe Connections podcast. And we're looking forward to see you next week again. So let's stay connected and inspired. See you next week, same time, same place. Thank you for joining us. Good night, everyone.